It's an interesting juxtaposition here because obviously the president, Obama, actively campaigned against Donald Trump on the trail. Now they talk regularly. How would you describe the relationship between the two?
Well, it's very professional and cordial. Look, I mean, the president-elect is leaning on everyone around him for advice and counsel. That's the way that the president-elect does business. He loves to have everyone give their input in, and having somebody like the current president who really understands the difficulties that America faces today. Maybe we have different views, but still understands the difficulties, I think is very valuable advice for President-elect Trump to seek.
Let me ask you about this most recent conversation surrounding Donald Trump sort of calling out companies. Obviously, this morning, we're all talking about Boeing. Yesterday, he tweeted out, too expensive for the Air Force One planes, $4 billion, cancel contract. Then, of course, we saw what he said about Rexnord on the heels of, the deal that he got Carrier to keep the jobs here. People are worried that he's going to have this aggressive stance in terms of calling out companies, specific companies, and actually moving their stock prices. But Boeing stock went down on the president-elect's comments.
The president-elect was elected to fight for the American worker. And I think that's really what made him resonate in those Rust Belt states in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Iowa. And I think that he won an overwhelming mandate to make sure that companies are not abusing the American worker. And that's what I think these things are. Look, trying to save American jobs with the Carrier deal in Indiana is a true test of leadership, and he passed it with flying colors. Calling out a tax, expensive to the taxpayer Boeing deal is something that is protecting the American worker from having their tax dollars go to something that may not be necessary. Look, it's an expensive endeavor. We all understand it's an important airplane. So does the president. But I think that it's something that needs to be looked at, and that's part of negotiations and getting a good deal.
Do we know that it's $4 billion? Some people said, look, even Boeing came out. They said, look, we understand hundreds of millions of costs. So I don't know where this $4 billion number came out.
We understand that the two airplanes, the R&D, which is a huge aspect of this plane. It's not just building two airplanes. It's all of the entire thing is about $3.7 billion that we can come up with. And obviously, we've never seen a government contract that's come under budget, only over. And so President-elect Trump is going to change that. We're going to be starting to do things ahead of schedule and under budget.
But we can't possibly be hearing from him on specific companies all the time once he's president, right? I mean, you can't imagine that the president of the free world is going to be talking specifically to CEOs about where their plants are headquartered, can we? Or is this just sort of the opening shot? He's not in the White House yet.
He's a change agent. He's a different kind of leader. He looks at these types of things as a way to change the narrative that American companies should not be trying to go abroad for profit and abusing the American worker in the meantime. And I think that's resonating across the country, and I think that we're hopefully going to see a little bit of a sea change here.
David, take us behind the curtain a bit in terms of how some of these decisions for the cabinet are being made. Last week, Stephen Mnuchin and Wilbur Ross sat right in your seat and told me that Trump himself conducted 70 interviews at Trump Tower in terms of cabinet picks. But the critics of the president-elect are saying he's too focused on the cabinet choices. He's not focused on policy. And obviously they go hand in hand. But what's been the process in terms of coming up with these cabinet picks?
I'm going to tell you, it's an impressive process. It's a deliberative process. Every single choice that the president has made, and by the way, we're ahead of schedule. We're ahead of Barack Obama. We're ahead of Bush 43. We're ahead of Bush 41.
You have to be. He's moved so fast.
It's unbelievably fast. And by the way, Bush 41 was an incumbent vice president with a government already built, and we're ahead of him. So what the president-elect has done is really stunning to us. But he makes all the decisions. He is taking these meetings. He understands the policies. He's looking for people who understand what he's trying to do as a leader and looking for those leadership qualities that he can really work with, I think.
America first.
America first.
Let me ask you real quick, in terms of announcements and the timeline of this, what should we expect next couple of weeks before year-end? A lot more announcements? Can you give us a timeline?
Oh, I think the president-elect is on track to fill his cabinet between now and the end of the year. We're on a great pace. We have wonderful people continuing to come through the door this week and next. And I think we're going to see a lot more announcements, and you'll see some more tremendous Americans joining the cabinet.
Is it a heavy military presence in the cabinet?
I think it's a wonderful presence. I don't qualify it in any way. I think the president-elect is looking at people, men and women who have served this great country in a host of different ways. And if they happen to be in the military, that does not obviously disqualify them. It actually gives them an incredible qualification.
So military and business as well has been up there in terms of priorities, getting business people.
Sure, because if you're a successful businessman or woman, if you're successful in America, that's what Americans need. They need smart people who are going to do it a little bit differently, and that's what this administration is going to be about.
Somebody tweeted out this morning, yeah, this is why I voted for Trump. New sheriff in town looks at the bills.
Yeah.
So he's acting like a CEO.
That's right, he is.
David, good to see you.
Thanks so
much for joining us. David Bossie joining us there.